Hello, my name is James. I'm a portrait photographer from Portsmouth in the UK. You've probably not heard of me. And I welcome you to this, my studio, and to this latest shoot. We were going to call it the basics of flash photography, but someone had a hissy. So we're now calling it the fundamentals of flash photography. Welcome, Zoe, to the studio.
I'm not basic.
She's not basic, that's why we changed it. These are the fundamentals of flash photography. We're taking you right back to basics. If you've just bought your first flash unit, if you've just been introduced to using strobe photography, then this is the workshop for you. We're going to bring it right down to basics. We're going to take an image here of Zoe using flash. The first thing I need to do, step number one, is not use flash at all. The idea of the flash unit in this shot is to be the only source of light in the studio. And in this studio right now, there's all sorts of light. There's a fluorescent light up there. There's an LED ring light there lighting me. There's a window light at the back of the room there. There's all sorts of lights bouncing around here. So we want to make sure that there's no light in the studio till now. I could go around and turn off all the lights, but I'm quite lazy. And also we need to film this video, so we need the lights on. The way we're going to do it to eliminate all the lights is to set our camera settings so that no light is affecting the exposure on the camera before we turn on the flash. We're going to take Zoe all the way to the back of the room, to the back wall there for me, and we're going to get our camera and set it up without any flash triggers, and we're going to see if we can set it up to the point where we actually get a black exposure on the background there. If I literally just turn my camera to P mode, P for Pratt on most of these things, where you will have like a green square on some cameras, which will be your fully auto mode. I'll take a picture of Zoe. She's going to do a wonderful pose at the back of the studio here. Just like that. It is a wonderful pose. 3, 2, 1, go. And on P mode, the photograph there is going to come through, and it's going to try and take the exposure there really poorly to try and get the best exposure with the light around the room. The settings for that shot that the camera chose was ISO 100, f4, and a 15th of a second, which is why it's a bit blurry there. I was holding the camera it was open for a 15th of a second. There was a certain amount of lens blur in there, a certain amount of motion blur, which is why it's not coming through. The first step I would therefore take, if I was taking my first ever shot with flash in studio to control all of the light in studio, is to move my camera setting to M for manual. And manual means that I'm in full control of all of the settings. I've moved my ISO to 100, which is the least sensitive ISO for the sensor on the back of the camera. It's going to give us the highest quality of image coming through, but it also means that camera back isn't that sensitive to light. I'd set my shutter speed to 1/60th of a second so that I know it's syncing. That's the fastest speed I can get before I move into high speed sync, which is a completely different ball game, but it's the maximum standard sync I can get, 1/160th of a second, which as you can see is a few stops up from a 15th of a second, 15th going through 30, 60, 120, it's around about 3.5 stops quicker and less exposed than 1/15th of a second. So 1/160th of a second, and I'm going to move my, my F number there, my aperture, the amount of light that's actually coming through the hole in the lens, to f11, quite a closed aperture there. We can open up a little bit wider. We're going to go for f11 on this one. And we're going to take the same shot here of Zoe therefore, we're posing amazingly on the back wall. 3, 2, 1, go, and relax. And we're going to see how that one's come through. And lo and behold, we now have an almost entirely black image there, which means that none of the light in this studio at those settings, at the ISO of 100, at the faster shutter speed, and at the more closed up aperture, is going to affect the camera sensor. So therefore, when we turn the flash on, the only light that's going to affect that sensor is the light coming out of the flash. The flash unit I'm using here is the EL Skyport. This is the Elinchrom Skyport, and it's the one that I use for all of my photography. And I use Elinchrom lights. This one here is a very near and dear light to me. This is the Elinchrom DLite RX4. It's the first flashlight I ever owned. I love it dearly, and that's the one we're going to be using for this shot here. I'm going to turn on my unit and I'm just going to set it up to scan, and it's going to scan for all of the available units that are available to use for me in the shoot here. It's going to try and find them, and it's going to find the DLite RX4 here, And therefore, when I hit that button, there's a tiny little Elinchrom logo button on here, we can see that it's connected to that flash unit, and it will trigger every time I take a photograph. It's gonna pump out some light from that light there. Next step, we're gonna set up the power on this light. It's currently set to 5.0. It goes down from 2.0 all the way up to 6.0. It's on a decimal scale on this one, but I'm just gonna have a little guesstimate here. 5.0, I reckon we're gonna get enough flash power to give us good exposure across the picture. When the image comes up, if it's very, very bright, it's overexposed, so you'll need to come down on that power setting. And if it's very, very dark, then it's underexposed, so you'll need to come up on that power setting. Nice and simple, white background shot, perfect. Everything's working, flash trigger working, 3, 2, 1, go. Let's just see how that one's come out. There we go, and now we can see Zoe in this image. The flash is working, the trigger's working, and we've got good exposure. And now with this massive light source, we can just get Zoe to pull a few different poses. Every time you see a flash, do something a little bit different, and go. Change, 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 and we can see every time the flash is recycling, one more. Beautiful. And we're getting a range of shots, and every single one of those shots, as you can see, is coming through consistently at the same exposure into the back of the camera, giving us good control over the light and the light source. But what if we want to elevate everything and change the look of the picture slightly? Well, the most dramatic way that we can do that is by changing the modifier on this light. It's quite a clunky thing for me to do. I could stand here trying to change this massive softbox. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring in a different light. This is the Elinchrom One. C-port charge, comes with its own battery. We've turned that other light off. So if we were to take a shot now with no lights on, again, just in here, 3, 2, 1, go. Again, it should come up completely black. Brilliant. So we know that the light still isn't affecting because we've got these settings locked in. Now we have this light source here. It's an Elinchrom One with a very simple reflector cap, and look at the difference in size. Look, we've got a tiny reflector cap here, almost the size of my hand there. And then this softbox here that we were using for the first one is huge and massive. There we go, Zoe doing her sale of the century gimmick again. Fantastic. We're gonna bring this light in here onto the other side. Same angle that the light was previously. We've dialed in a power that's around about halfway again for this one, but we're just gonna see how these shots affect and how they look different. Same range of poses, just pick one pose there for me to begin with, Zoe. 3, 2, 1, go. Let's see how that shot looks different now. There we go. So now we have a harder light source. We still get exposure across the picture, but the light source there, slightly harsher, slightly different, slightly more contrasting. That's what you get from these smaller light sources that don't have the modification. This softbox here is massive, and it's got different levels of diffusion throughout. It's got a diffusion layer on the inside, and then a diffusion layer here on the outside. This one here has absolutely no diffusion. It's almost entirely a bare bulb there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this in a slightly different way, okay, to elevate this portrait slightly. We're going to bring Zoe off the backdrop. Previously, when we've had her on the backdrop, the exposure of the light has hit that backdrop and has made sure that that backdrop has come through as white, as our eyes see it. Now there's more distance because we've moved the light from this close here, maybe 2 meters out from the backdrop, to now 4 meters out from the backdrop. And what we're starting to use here is a thing called the inverse square law that I'm not going to go into now because you can Google it and study it yourself. But essentially, because it's further away, it's going to have less effect on the object that it had previously in terms of exposure. What should happen on this shot here is that our background should go a little bit darker, but because Zoe is still the same distance away from the light, she should still be in perfect exposure from the shot. Zoe's going to come in a little closer to me here. Perfect. That's roughly the same distance. We're going to have the hair off the shoulders, and we're just going to bring in for a little pose here looking straight in. Perfect. Remember, none of the lights in this studio are affecting the exposure of this shot apart from this one. Let's just see how this shot looks. 3, 2, 1, go. And on those same settings, now we've worked from a white backdrop to a grey backdrop. One thing I should point out is that when you're working with hard light sources like this, they can be quite difficult to look at, can't they, Zoe? Especially if you look straight at them as they're flashing, which is quite difficult. That's the fundamentals of how we use a flash and how we set it up. Remember, different modifiers are going to have different looks and feels to the end image. Remember that ambient light will play a part unless you set up the camera to eliminate the effect of ambient light so that only your flashlight will affect the picture. And remember, distance that light is away from subjects is going to create different exposures and allow you to control your images in different ways. Now you've got the fundamentals and we understand how to use one flashlight to create an image. There are a multitude of ways that you can use that one light to affect and create different portraits. And one of the best courses to learn 10 ways to use one light is through nofussmus.com, where we take one light, one model, and one camera to create 10 completely different looks and different images. There's also a 2 and a 3 light workshop course on there as well. Zoe, this has been a really aspirational shoot, hasn't it?
Yes. Si, senor.
Yeah, I forgot you to say hello to everyone. Say hello to everyone at home.
Hola.
There it is. Like and subscribe, say nice things. Hope you enjoyed this video. Join us next Monday. There'll be a new video on this YouTube channel every Monday showcasing how to use flash to the benefit of creating amazing portraits. And as ever, all the best.